there's one thing, well, there's probably many things, but there's one thing that really, really gets my goat, really makes me annoyed, really gets me like animated. And it's something that I think some people might think is quite benign, doesn't really matter, it's not a big deal. And I've always been this way. This isn't a recent thing, this isn't grumpy old man syndrome or anything like that. It's to do with spelling mistakes. I don't mind spelling mistakes. I think I've been known to get a few of them wrong. But we live in this technological era of spell checkers, Grammarly, I don't know, there's loads of them out there. Is there any real reason to have a spelling mistake? I don't really mind the grammatical problems, punctuation and things of that nature that may be a bit harder, even though I think Grammarly is very good. And I'm not advertising Grammarly, by the way. I've already said Grammarly too many times to not be sponsored. And I'm not, so I'm not going to mention it again. But and it's not always right. So for me, if I see a sign or a poster and something's spelt incorrectly and it's glaring, to me that is totally unacceptable. We have the tools, we've all got access to the internet. We can Google, even though it's not my preferred interaction I have with my browser. There is no excuse. And I've seen a few signs and some spelling mistakes. I'm sort of thinking, okay, it's a difficult one, but for some of them they're just like, wow. And I think, especially if it's a sign or it's instructing you to do something or it's telling you something like a warning, or that has to be right, that has to be spelled right. I think that's, if you want any credibility whatsoever, it's got to be perfect. If it's an email, who cares? If it's a message, who cares, I suppose. But if it's printed, if it's got permanence, you want it to be right. If it's a legal document, if it's an affidavit in a court, if it's evidence in a murder trial, if it's a sign, you want it to be right. And I'd say in the last week, I've seen at least half a dozen signs spelled incorrectly. A couple were like professionally done signs where, they were either embossed or they were proper stick-on type, yeah. A couple were handwritten, which you thought, okay. A couple were obviously done on a PC and printed on a printer, okay. But for the more professionally done signs, you sort of said to yourself, did nobody check this? Did nobody have a look at this? And the problem for me is no matter how important the message was meant to be, it's completely lost all credibility.